little cute Brussels sprout, and I love it. You might not love Brussels sprouts to eat, but I think you're going to agree with me that this is a cutie, and would be great for those Christmas trees. People having Brussels sprouts for Christmas dinner would be perfect for that. So this may look a little complicated, but it's actually very, very simple. If you've never made amigurumi being small, cute toy projects generally, if you've never made anything like that before, this is a perfect one to start on. It is our circle unit, and this is made from circles. Yes, indeed it is. Each of these leaves is a circle. We have larger ones on the outside, and then we have 3 smaller ones on the inside. And this is how they look. Turn it the other way around. So this is what we make. We make 4 of these for the outer and 3 slightly smaller for the inner leaves. So circles, perfect. And then the centre, which is basically a ball, is made from making one of these circles. So we increase, and then we do a few rounds for the centre, and then we decrease to make the top. So we're basically going to have 2 of these, one on top of each other, but with a bit of centre around the middle. So it is all based on circles. So let's give it a go and see how it works up. Very, very simple, and would be perfect. And even just seeing how to make a ball would be quite useful as well. So stay tuned and let's get started. So first of all, we are going to either use a chain 4 and slip stitch, or you can use the magic ring. Now magic ring is kind of a bit better for this because you can pull it in nice and tightly at the centre. If you're not familiar with the magic ring, then you can also do this method. If I can get my slip stitch on my hook, on my, there we go, slip stitch. Okay, so you can chain 2. Chain 2. If you've done the magic ring, or you've done a slip stitch and chain 4 and slip stitch to make a ring, you want to chain 1. Okay, so this is going to act as the bottom chain is going to be our ring, and the top chain our chain 1. Okay, and then you're going to do 6 single crochets into your ring. So if you're doing this chain 2 method as a simpler method, you want to do 6 single crochets in that bottom chain. Okay, just use that bottom chain as if it were your ring. 6 single crochets. Okay, when you have 6 single crochets, you want to slip stitch into your first stitch of the round. And close that round off. And then whichever method you're using, pull your centre in nice and tightly. Okay, you can always pull it in tighter later on though. Don't panic about that, you can always pull it in tighter later on. Okay, I've just zoomed in a bit. I apologise if I was a bit far away on that one. Okay, so the next round we are just going to increase our circle, make a bigger circle. So we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to do 2 single crochets into each stitch. Okay, 2 into each stitch, nice and simple, making a stitch count of 12. Nine, 10, 11, and 12. Perfect. There we go. 12 single crochets in there now. So again, you're going to slip stitch to your first single crochet. If you find it hard to see where your first single crochet is, then you can always make your first stitch and then pop a stitch marker on, and then you'll always know where that first stitch is. It can sort of hide itself a bit with that chain 1. Okay, so round 3, we're going to increase this again to 18 stitches. So this time we are going to do a chain 1, and then we're going to do 2 stitches in the first stitch, and then 1 in the next. Okay, so it's easy to count. So the next one we're going to do 1, 2, and then in the next one is 3. Okay, so we're doing 1, 2, and then move along for 3. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. Don't get mistaken by your slip stitch, okay? If you can see this here, this slip stitch looks a bit like a stitch, but just remember that will be your slip stitch, okay? So don't work into there. If you're doing your stitch count correctly, then you will always have that little bit there for your slip stitch, okay? So you should have 18 stitches now, and then slip stitch into your first stitch. Okay. Now we are making the center, or the heart, of our Brussels sprout, because we're making this center ball, okay, that center part of the sprout. So we are now going to do 3 rounds where we don't increase our stitches at all. We just work with our 18 stitches, okay? So chain 1, do a single crochet in that first stitch, and then 1 single crochet in every stitch around. So count 18. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Okay, remember you've got that little tiny slip stitch there, okay, don't work into that. So you'll see this is starting to curl, that's absolutely fine. Just do a slip stitch into your first stitch. And then you're going to repeat this twice more. So 2 more rounds of just 18 stitches, okay? And I'll see you when I've done these 2 more rounds. Okay, so this is what you should have now. It looks like a tiny little bowl. This is what you have. So now you want to sew in and secure your magic ring, or whatever method you used. You want to secure that now, because when we go further you won't be able to get to it, because we're going to turn this inside out in a moment, okay? So make sure you are fixing this and securing in the center here. Doesn't matter about your tail, you can completely leave that attached and that will help with the stuffing. So you just want to secure this and make sure that it can't pull open and loose, okay? because magic rings do like to come open and loose if you don't secure them. So you grab your needle and give that a secure now. Okay, so I've secured my ring, but I've left the tail because it will help with some extra stuffing. There's no need to cut that at all. So now what you want to do is turn this inside out. So we've got the right side of the stitches facing outwards. Okay, there we go. Just tuck that little tail inside there. Let's pull this loop back down, ready to work. So now we're going to start, so we've done an increase of our circle and then we worked the sides up nicely, and now we're going to start decreasing to make this again essentially, so we're going to have the same kind of piece on top. Okay, so now we're going to work around the outside, so we're going to work around this way. Before we were kind of like this, working from inside, so now we're working around this way. It can be a little confusing when you first turn it inside out, but this is how we're working now. Okay, so we are going to start decreasing, and this is why we needed to sew and fix our magic ring, because that's going to get stuck in there and we're not going to be able to get our hands in there to do it later. So chain 1, and then we're going to do a single crochet in the same stitch. And then we are going to repeat around. We're going to do a single crochet 2 together. Okay, so if my camera chooses to focus, a single crochet 2 together, nice and simple. Go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, 2 loops on your hook, go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. So you've made those 2 stitches down into just one top of a stitch. Okay, and then you're going to do a single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, so single crochet 2 together, the next 2, and then a single crochet. Repeat that all the way around and you will end up with 12 stitches. So we're working down in our count now, so from 18 to 12. So 2 together and then 1, 2 together and then 1, all the way around, and then slip stitch to join to the beginning. Okay, this is what it's looking like now. So you can see it's just starting to curve inwards. Okay, so now what we're going to do before it gets any smaller, because the next round it will become 6 stitches, so before it gets any smaller we're going to fill this with some stuffing. Now you can choose to use sort of proper fibre fill stuffing, which is white, and depending on how tight your stitches are that may show through, but that's the general thing that's used for this kind of thing. But because this is so tiny, I prefer to just use some of my yarn. So let me find the other end of yarn here somewhere. It's all in a bit of a tangle, you can see. It's all going lovely. If I can find the other end. Let me find that off camera, save you looking at all my mess. Okay, I think I'm sorted. So what you want to do is just take some yarn, and then for this is kind of roughly sort of a big thimble really. So what I'm going to do is just wrap some around my finger. Found this was the easiest way when I did this before, so wrap some around my finger. Using the same yarn that you've used to make it will mean that it won't show through like regular sort of fibre fill will. It won't show through any little gaps of stitches, which is perfect. So I'm just going to make this bundle. Let's wrap it around, and then I'm going to stuff this inside here. That is not enough, because you need this to be slightly fuller than the size it is already, because we're going to increase this over the top. So you need enough in there for it to dome. So let me get some more of this. find the end again. So it's a bit of a trial and error, just keep going with it and just add some more as you need to. So I'm going to take this out, wrap this around. And it depends how squishy you want it or how solid you want it. If you want it nice and squishy, then you want to make sure it's not stuffed really, really full. If you want it to be nice and solid, then you want it really full and tightly packed. So, and if you're not bothered, then just do it until it looks and feels about right. So let's have a look at this. Stuff that in there. There we go, brilliant. So it's just, you can see that's slightly doming over the top there, so that will just squish out nicely. Okay, so there we go. So now it's time to continue closing this up. So let's grab our loop on our hook. Now when you're doing these stitches now, you just need to be careful not to catch this stuffing in the middle. So I just like to sort of push it down, get my finger in there and push it down out of the way. Okay, so we're going to make this round into 6 stitches now. So start the round as usual with a chain 1, and then we're going to slip stitch 2 together all the way around. So the first 2, that makes 1 stitch, and then the next 2 makes 2 stitches. Next 2 makes 3. Next 2 makes 4. Next 2 makes 5. 1 more, so next 2 stitches, 1 and 2, not catching that stuffing. Perfect. And then slip stitch into the first stitch, not the slip stitch. So if you can't identify it, just count back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this one just here. Okay, and slip stitch. Okay, there we go. Now you want to pull out a long tail. Pull that through. There we go. Now I've just got this little bit at the top here that we need to close up. So you've got your long tail, grab your needle and thread that on, and then what we're going to do is weave in and out of these 6 stitches. So I'm going to go backwards or through centre, outwards, and I'm going to go outwards into the centre under the next stitch. Let's find the top of that stitch and not the filling. There we go. And then I'm going to go from the centre outwards under the next stitch, and likewise all the way around, in and out, just like so. Don't need to pull tightly at the moment. And then I'm going to go back out where I started, and then this is the magic part. We are just going to pull tightly and close up those stitches. There we go. And there is, you give it a little bit of a shape in your hand. There is your little ball, or the centre of a Brussels sprout. There we go. How cute is that? So the only other thing to do now is just secure that. So pull that nice and tightly, and then just go under a couple of stitches and through, and then back through a couple of stitches out the other side, like so. And then what I like to do is take my needle and pop it into the bottom and then come out the top, pull it a bit tighter, snip that off, and then when you fluff it back up, that disappears into the centre and you have your nice neat ball. There we go. How easy is that? And you can see how you can make this any size you like to make a little ball, and it is just making a circle with your increases and then doing a few rows up the side and then decreasing to bring it back in again. You can make this any size ball you like, but for us, or for now, this is going to be the centre of our Brussels sprout. So let's make some leaves for our sprout. And the leaves are made in exactly the same way as the start of this centre. Nice and simple. Okay, let me show you. This is the inner leaf. It has 18 stitches. This is the outer leaf and has 24 stitches. So you can see how they are starting just the way that our inner centre did. Just the same way. So I'm going to run through it again quickly for you and show you how it's done, and then show you how you stop at this point and then how you make it into 24 for the larger leaves. Okay, so hook and yarn at the ready. Okay, so you want to start with either a magic ring or a chain 4 and slip stitch, or as I did at the start, you can start with that chain 2 and use the bottom chain as your magic ring. Whichever method you use, you want to start with that chain 1. So if you did 2 chains, then you're working in the bottom and you automatically have your first chain. Okay, so I'm going to use the magic ring for this one just to show a slight difference. So we're going to do 6 single crochets into our ring. Okay, pull that ring in and do a slip stitch to your first single crochet. Just like so. It's not going to focus, but there we go. Okay, so now we are going to do 2 stitches into every stitch. So chain 1 and then 2 stitches into every stitch, making 12 stitches altogether. So I'll do my 12 and get back to you. Okay, when you've got your 12 stitches, do a slip stitch into your first stitch. Close that round. Okay, next round, chain 1, 2 stitches into the first stitch, and then 1 in the next, 2, and then 1, and you will have 18 stitches at the end of this round. So 18 stitches, slip stitch into your first stitch of the round. Okay, so for your inner leaves, 18 is the amount you want. So this is where you would stop for your inside smaller leaves, like this. So for this leaf, you want 3 of these. So you're going to do a chain 1 and then do 1 stitch in every stitch around, so 18 stitches, and that will start to curl it up just like we did before for the center ball. Okay, this will start to curl up like this, and that's where you want to finish, and just leave a nice long tail for sewing. Okay, so make 3 of this size with a last round of 1 stitch into every stitch, making 18. Okay, and then fasten off. So do 3 of those. Okay, 3 of those. And when you've done 3 of those, you're going to repeat this again. When you get to the 18 stitches, we are going to do 1 more round till we increase to 24. So chain 1, single crochet 2 in the first stitch, and then 1 in the next stitch and 1 in the next stitch. So a count of 4. So 1, 2 in the first stitch, and then 3 and 4 along. Okay, repeat that all the way around, 2 in one stitch and then 1 in each of the next 2, and you should have a count of 24 at the end of this round. I'll see you 24 stitches later. 24 stitches, slip stitch to your first stitch, and then you want to make 1 more round of the 24 to make it curl inwards. So chain 1 and then 1 stitch in every stitch around, just as I said for the smaller leaves. So 24 stitches all the way around, and then fasten off, leaving a nice long tail for sewing in. Okay, and you will need 4 of these. Okay, so 3 of the small leaves for the inside and 4 of the larger for the outside. And when you have all those 7 leaves and your centre ball made, meet me back to assemble. So I'm going to finish this one and then I'll see you to do some assembly. Okay, when you have made 4 larger and 3 smaller leaves, you want to sew in and secure your magic ring, or whatever ring you've got in the centre. You want to secure that and then cut off the remaining yarn from that centre. Leave your long piece for sewing to the ball, but just secure these centres and then snip off the excess. Okay, this is how the Brussels sprout looks when it's all put together. So we have the 3 centre leaves and then the 4 outer leaves. So you may wish to get some pins for this. I don't have any pins to hand, but I do have various needles and bits and bobs. So what you want to do is take your centre. Now you can choose where you want the top to be, the lines or the very, very top. And then these leaves, which are curling, you want to pop them out the other way, so they sort of dome like this. Okay, you see that? It's doming like so, like a little tiny hat. So you want to turn these all the other way so that you've got the neat front side of your stitches facing outwards. Okay, let's just deal with these centre ones for now. So turn them all around, and then you want to pin them, or you can just wing it and then make sure they're around the top, and you just pop a pin, or in my case a needle, just to secure them into there in place, and then just stagger them around the outside, slightly overlapping. See where they need to be, to slightly overlap. That one there. Let's grab another needle and pop that through. Okay, so you can use pins or something just to pop them into place for where you want them to be, or you can just totally wing it and just hold it in place. And then you want to sew them, and you want to sew sort of halfway from the side up to the other side. You want to leave this top part free. Okay, so just sew the bottom half of each of these using your nice long threads that you left from when you fastened off. So you're going to sew those 3. I'm going to just take these out because for me they just get in my way. You can choose how you want to do this, of course. So let me just show you joining one. I didn't leave a very long tail on that, so let's get a longer one. Okay. What you can do with ones like this that don't have a very long tail is you can share them. You can secure it to it like so, and then share the rest of the yarn from another one to finish it off. So I'll just show you one of these. So because we sew halfway, I like to start this at the side and then I can sew around to halfway. So centre about there. I'm just going to fix this through the actual ball first, and then I'm just going to go through and then around. It doesn't have to be too neat, it all sort of fades into itself. And the outer leaves will be covering this a little bit anyway, so we'll hide a multitude of mistakes quite nicely. So just going through, round, attaching to about halfway up. Okay, and making sure that I leave the top neat, even if I'm not doing the bottom part particularly neat. So there we are, we're about halfway there, leaving that top part open. You see that top part's open. Okay, so I'm going to continue. Okay, when you have your 3 inner leaves done, it's time to take your outer leaves and stagger those around the outside, just as you did before. So just place these around the outside and fix them at the bottom, just as you did before. All 4 around the outside until you have something that looks a bit like this. So I'm going to do those 4 now, and then I will join you back with my final result. And here we go. Here's the Brussels sprout that I've just made. My leaves aren't completely straight. I didn't overlap them perfectly, but it's a Brussels sprout, and vegetables don't always grow perfectly. In fact, there's a supermarket over here in the UK that has a section of wonky veg, they call it wonky veg. People normally want their veg to look perfect, but they're selling wonky veg, so this would fit perfectly in there. So there is my Brussels sprout from today. There's my one from the other day, a bit bigger, but I think they're great, and they would look so cute hanging on a Christmas tree or something. So there you go. I hope you've had fun making this little Brussels sprout today, and seeing another way of using circles. Cute, and so easy to make. So there we go, another thing to do with your circles, Brussels sprouts. So I hope you've had fun with that and enjoyed making those along with me. If you have, then please click that like button, give us a thumbs up, you know it's much appreciated. So show me your photos if you're in the Facebook group. There's a link to that below, Beyond the Cow, or on Instagram, #BeyondTheCow. And until next time, just keep hooking and don't forget to eat your veg. Don't let your tea get cold.